Good morning. Welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. This is BRN Weekly for Saturday, May 18th, 2024. And our top story today, the Dow reaches another milestone, 40,000. And joining me now to help break it all down, Jane King is joining us from the NASDAQ. Jane, always great to see you. Welcome back to the program this morning.
Oh, thanks. Great to be back, Jeffrey.
All right, I guess the headline news, and I want to ask you about this, is Dow Jones Industrial Average 40,000. So let me get your reaction to that. And what does that mean to all of us who may be investors?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a round number. It's an even number. We finally crossed it. Not sure it makes any more difference than Dow 39,500. But it's still, something to talk about. And we couldn't close there. That's going to be, the test is if we can close and stay above that level. And what's interesting is, everybody says sell in May and go away. We're hitting record highs in May. So maybe this year is just a little bit different. But I guess it tells you that inflation, at least perceived by the market, is under control, or at least not getting any worse. And there's some people that think this is foreshadowing of a Trump victory. And if you look at stocks that are GOP friendly, they are doing better, energy and things like that. So who knows what's behind this, but definitely it's been a good year for the market so far.
You bring up an interesting point, Jane, and I want to ask you, we talked so much about the Federal Reserve Bank and what Jerome Powell is going to do and the role that interest rates play. And it does play a big role in it seemingly in the market. How much does politics, you talked about maybe energy friendly stocks doing well. How much does that actually play into what the market does? Is it as big a role as what the Fed does?
I don't think it's quite as big, but it feels like the Fed is kind of more immediate impact, where policy is kind of more of a long-term impact. But people remember what things were like when Trump was president, 2016 to 2020. Regulations went away. There was a lot of things. The stock market did pretty well. So he's talked about, we're going to open up drilling again. So, I mean, you are seeing some of those GOP friendly sectors outperform some of the sectors that are considered to be more Democrat.
Yeah, and look, I mean, it is super early. We should probably do an election special as we get, around Labor Day. I mean, the summer months, and we've got these debates coming up, and I think it'll be a circus if they
Oh, a
actually
lot.
happen. But so much of what happens during the summer, most people, Jane, most voters don't even check out. I mean, so this will be the first time we have presidential debates before that I can remember before the conventions.
That's right. I know. And there's speculation about why that is. Does that mean if Biden doesn't perform, will there be somebody come in? Who know? I mean, everybody's speculating about what's going to happen. There's a lot of interest in this. And even my friends that are overseas are sending me WhatsApp messages and, what do you think of this? And what do you think of that? And what's your read on this and that? And there's a lot of global interest in how this election turns out. So we're just in for some interesting months ahead.
Yeah, do you think, given the news about Netflix picking up some NFL games, do you think maybe there's interest in hosting a presidential debate?
Well, I think that would be a very interesting concept because, yeah, they are going to be running NFL games on Christmas Day over the next few years. I can totally see that happen. Probably not this time around, but it would be something that could very much be likely in the future.
Here's a out of left field question. What do you make of all the bundling that's going on in streaming? And you and I don't often talk about streaming, but streaming, I have to think that some of the companies make up the NASDAQ and they make up the stock market, Paramount, Peacock, but there's now bundling and it
Yeah.
seems eerily reminiscent of the 80s consolidation of cable and the bundling that went on cable. Is this kind of reverting back to the mean?
I think so. I mean, the whole thing was you're going to reduce your cable bill. You'll still have great shows. You'll go from $200 a month to 40 or something like that. Well, now we're paying $200 a month again because we have all these different streaming services. And outside of Netflix, I don't think any of them are profitable. Maybe Disney is close or talked about maybe they made a profit for the first time in the quarter. I can't remember exactly, but they've got all this content, but it's just so hard to make money. So yes, we've been seeing there's two different groups that have consolidated and Yeah, I mean, it's a different delivery mechanism, but kind of the same thing as what we've seen before.
Yeah, it's going to be. I kind of look at that as like I think it's an experiment, and I think people are just trying to adjust tactics. How do you earn the ad revenue now? There's ad supported programming. I guess last question, Jane. I want to just go back to something you talked about around, or we were talking about before about inflation. Let's drill down a little bit about that. Talk about gas prices, where they stand today, because Memorial Day obviously coming up, so people are going to be hitting the road potentially. Where do gas prices stand, and also food prices? My read is that some food prices have come down, but others, not so much.
Well, if you look at the CPI that we just got, gas and housing were 70% of inflation during the month of April. So housing is still very expensive. I mean, I'm hearing some horror stories out there about people not being able to buy a house and find a place to rent, or rent is $1,000 more than what was advertised, things like that. Food inflation was about zero during the month of April. So that seems to have settled down. Whatever we got, the market seemed to like it because we've hit record highs since that number came out.
I'm interested. And we have to get someone. I have to ask our booker, who is also my mother, who's a big fan of yours, by the way, about McDonald's, because McDonald's is coming out with its $5 menu. What
Yes.
exactly do you get? Like one chicken McNugget and one fry? I'm just kind of
Oh,
wondering.
I think it's like a McNugget and like a sandwich and a soda and maybe a fry.
Okay, well, we'll have
If I
to.
read right.
I would love to get some insight into that, because we've often talked about shrinkflation with you and
Yeah.
others on this program. That seems to be the norm in terms of not driving up cost. Jane, it's an always pleasure talking with you. We could talk to you for hours, but we only have a certain amount of time, and you have a certain amount of time. Great. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll check you
Thanks.
back next week.
Okay.
Thanks, Jane. Always great to see you. Excellent analysis. And look, we look forward to having you back on the program again next week. And when we come back, we take a look at some of our best segments for the week. You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN Weekly. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms? Especially for the smaller businesses. I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network. Welcome back. It was another great week of programs with great topics. And of course, we always have great guests. We kicked off the week with a closer look at the new fiduciary rule. Let's take a look.
The Department of Labor finalized its new fiduciary rule on April 23rd, 2024. The prior fiduciary rule is, known as the 5-part test, and it came out in 1975. So 49-ish years ago. Under the 5-part test, you were a fiduciary if you did, 5 things that included providing advice on a regular basis. That was the primary basis of the decision maker. You received a fee in connection with that. In the past 50 years, there's been a big shift from defined benefit plans to defined contribution plans into IRAs. And so some of this concern by the Labor Department has been, ERISA was enacted in an era where it was defined benefit plans. We've now moved to this world where individuals are controlling their retirement outcomes. the agency was looking to, regulate more thoroughly that individual decision-making marketplace. Yeah, so there's definitely things to look at, and there's definitely things to be thinking about, and some of that goes to, what's changed, and so the statute hasn't changed, but the rule has changed, and that's going to cause some tension because, typically, if you're going to expand status of people, you're going to change people's roles. You'd expect the statute to change, but here, if I'm a plan sponsor, if I'm managing my retirement plan, and I'm talking to service providers, I can probably expect to see more disclosures, more disclaimers. I will expect, to see more saying either, I am a fiduciary when I provide financial wellness services, when I provide investment education, when I recommend products to you, or I'll probably see clearer signals that, I'm not a fiduciary when I do that. And, the Labor Department was pretty clear in this rulemaking that, things like investment education, they view investment education as important, and they recognize that investment education does not have to be fiduciary. So in 1996, they explained how it could be non-fiduciary investment education. In 2016, they explained how you could provide non-fiduciary investment education, providing just, general information on how the markets operate, general information on fees and expenses and the impact they have, different models for how investments can work, so long as they don't spit out a specific recommendation. And in the 2024 rulemaking, the Labor Department kept a lot of that in place and said, that it doesn't have to be fiduciary if you're providing that information. On the other hand, if you do go and make a recommendation, you say you've got this call to action, buy this product because this product is right for you, and I've taken into account your circumstances, then that's going to cross the line into fiduciary. But for a plan sponsor, the big thing is just going to be that this is going to lead to some changes in the next 6-ish months on how service providers interact. And we can expect to see more disclaimers, we can expect to see more discussions, and we can expect to see more dialogue around the role that the service provider is hoping to play. The Labor Department's really trying to do a major update of, where fiduciary status applies. And as we discussed earlier, we've moved from a world which was defined benefit to a world where individual decision-making is kind of the whole game. And how DOL has gone about going after this bigger marketplace is they've defined investment property broadly. And so what they've intended is if you're giving a retirement investor advice about something that involves investment property or has an investment component, then you become subject to the rule. And as an example, in the preamble, they discuss health savings accounts. And they say health savings accounts, where there's an investment component, are subject to the rule. So if you're recommending an investment lineup for an HSA, then you'd be sucked into the world of ERISA. And this is consistent with the Department of Labor's attempt to take a statute that hasn't changed and breathe new life into it, kind of expand the scope of where it would apply, to attempt to apply the Department of Labor's rules in a much broader marketplace.
Next up, we discussed how millions of American kids are now caregivers. Let's take a look.
Well, it's so true. And unfortunately, they have been so unrecognized. So every effort to increase awareness among the public and professionals, we're very thankful for. Each situation is so unique, Jeff. And yes, especially when there's trauma associated with caregiving, there can be an impact not only, during their school time, which is like the work time of an employed family caregiver, but also later on in life. Trauma in children is now more recognized than ever before. And so our work extends to supporting the child today as well as tomorrow. But, if we also need more workers in our healthcare force for the future. And if these children are supported and feel good about their accomplishments and valued, then maybe they'll be more likely to go into healthcare. Well, and that's not always a bad thing either, because it develops a different sense of you. And when you care for another person, it takes that relationship to a different level. So, there are many benefits to the children and to society, because when they become educated, then and don't drop out of school and stay in school, it also benefits society. So, if you drop out of school, your taxable earning dollars are less. There's more disease, more crime, more teen pregnancy, and ultimate system dependency. So, while the government does support adult family caregivers, we're working hard to get these children recognized so that they can be supported too, because their numbers far exceed those who are homeless children of all ages or those who are in foster care, who have formal recognition and support. And also, with the economy, we're seeing more households, combining multi-generations. We also have more grandparents raising grandchildren than ever before. And the government does support that group, but didn't really have the forethought about what happens when the grandparent gets sick. But also the other big influencer is that technology has allowed for more complex care at home. And so people who used to be in a hospital or a facility are now being cared for at home. And so that takes the extent of caregiving to a whole different level.
And that wraps up this episode of BRN Weekly. Have a topic of interest, someone you think we should talk to, drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the latest curated news and lifestyle, wellness, finance, tech, so much more all in one place, check out today's edition of our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse. Want to search our archives, check out our latest content, then visit our website. We're back again tomorrow for another edition of BRN Sunday. I'll be joined by the Legal Eagles and Oliver Rennick of the Schwab Network to help break down what's going on Capitol Hill and, of course, the markets and the economy. So until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes. Now is your opportunity to co-create content around any topic on the First Lifestyle and Wellness Network. Reach a global audience through our platform and co-own exclusive branded content. All of our programs are available on demand and also as audio-only podcasts, so you can take us on the go. Broadcast Retirement Network, available anytime, anywhere, and on any device.